Hey friends, happy fall. Welcome into my craft room. Thank you for clicking on this video. Now let's make something beautiful for our homes. Can you guess what these are made out of? If you guessed cups, you would be correct. I love the plastic section in the kitchen area at the Dollar Tree because you can turn so many things in that area into the cutest home decor pieces. I picked up this plastic cup from the kitchen section at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using this wood spool that I pick up from Hobby Lobby. We're starting with a really dark orange. It's almost a chocolatey brown, dare I say it, kind of like a poop brown. That's a terrible thing to say on my channel. We're going to go with a dark orange. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I'm going to paint the whole thing this base color, and the reason why is we're going to go from darkest to lightest to create a lot of texture. Just wait. The finished result is going to be so cool. So I'm going to add in some flour, that's right, baking flour that I use in the kitchen, and this is going to thicken up that paint, and I'm going to add in a pumpkin orange. I'm going to get this nice thick clumpy paint, and I'm going to cake that all over the cup. This is going to help it not look like a cup, and it's going to start to get all those little nodules and texture you would see on those Cinderella pumpkins, the ones that have a lot of bumps all over them. I'm going to just cake that all over, and I'm going to let it air dry because using a heat gun will cause your pumpkin cups to shrink and have all kinds of shriveling problems. It's better to let it air dry. Then I'm going to add in some white, and I'm going to continue to add on layers of lighter colors, moving my way up. Every time I finish a layer, I then add some more white, and then I put on that color. I did about 4 different colors, and all it really is just letting the paint dry. I put it in front of a fan in my craft room, and every time it's dry, I just add the next layer. To create the stem at the top, I'm going to use my hot glue gun and poke some holes down into the cup. The tip is going to melt a hole, and then that way the glue can go in through the hole, bind on the inside of the cup, and connect itself to the spool on top. That's going to help it keep it from popping off over time. Now go ahead and add glue inside of your spool, and then put that right on top of the cup. And for one of the cups, I'm going to double them up so it has a really tall stem. You could also just use sticks. If you don't have these spools, that could be really cute too. Now to finish the security of this spool not falling off, I flipped it over where that hole was and added some more glue, so it's got that hold on the top, hold on the bottom, and it's really connecting it together. Then I added on some greenery because I thought that would be really pretty, and I'm going to add on a vintage ribbon. This ribbon I get from the Dollar Tree. I got it during the fall season. I'm going to use my heat gun to help it shrink and shrivel up so it has that vintage ribbon look to it. And then I'm going to simply tie some bows, and I'm going to put a bow on each one of these pumpkins. These are so easy to make, and I think the pack of cups has 6 or 8. I can't remember inside of the container that you pick up from the Dollar Tree in the kitchen section. It's such a great deal to make these pumpkins, and it's just basically using a whole bunch of scraps I have around my craft room and some flour from the kitchen. So cute to put on a stack of books, to put on a little table next to the side of your couch, or even in the kitchen or a bathroom. Aren't they so adorable? And all it is using cups. I love large home decor items, but what I love even more are the small details to decorate my home. We're going to be using these random items, some drop cloth fabric, some of these little wooden spools, some of these shish kebab sticks, some buttons, just a bunch of random things. To start off, I'm going to be using a water-based stain using brown and a little bit of black mixed with water all over these wood pieces. I get my little wooden spools from Hobby Lobby, but I know the Dollar Tree has been carrying more and more wood things, so I would not be surprised if they didn't start getting some of these soon there. What we're going to do is we're going to take those shish kebab sticks that I get from the Dollar Tree. We're going to break them down to 3 different heights and glue them inside of the string spools. Glue them down in there so they're nice and straight. Add in as much glue as you need to without making it be messy with the hot glue. And you're going to see that they are tall, medium, small. These 3 different heights are going to be housing 3 different flowers. To create the flower, we're going to use the drop cloth fabric or whatever fabrics you might find at the Dollar Tree. They have a whole bunch in their craft section that you can use. I cut out 3 different size circles to start. Then I moved on to some strips. That these are going to be the leaves on our flowers that we're making. And then I came back in with one more small circle. Here are all of the measurements you're going to need and how many of them each you're going to need. Pause the screen, write those down if you're planning on making these. Once all of my circles were cut out, I'm doing the 3 larger circles and I'm just snipping in a little bit at different depths. Some are shorter snips, some are longer snips, and some are a variation of both on the 3 different flowers we're making. Now I'm moving on to painting them. I'm just using a paintbrush. I'm going with a mustard yellow flower, a really warm rustic pumpkin orange, and then I'm going to keep that third one a neutral, just drop cloth tan. Those 1-inch circles, I am adding on the color as well to the 2 of them. This is going to be the center of the flowers. Now you can see that I'm crumpling up the edges because you want them to have that rustic look. And for the green strips, I'm just pinching it in the middle like a bow tie pasta noodle, and that's going to create a lot of texture. For the flower that we're not going to be painting, I'm just using some hairspray to stiffen it up. You can also use some starch if you have that on hand. You could also use some Mod Podge if you have that. Once everything was dry, I decided to beef up the bottom of my string spool just a little bit more by adding on a button, a large button that had a flat side. I'm using E6000 to glue those together. And once that was nice and cleaned up, I'm just going to set it to the side to let it dry. Once they were dry, we can start assembling our flowers. Friends, these things come to life so quickly and they are so adorable. I want to make so many more of these. I had so much fun making these, and it really is just pennies to make this. I'm sure you all probably have all of these random scraps in your craft room, and just watch what we're going to create with this. It's so fun and cute to decorate your home with. Now I am just gluing the back and the top of the flowers together. Then I'm bringing in the center, and before I glue on the button, I added some glue in the center of the flower, some glue on my leaf. I'm going to just put that right on there, add on my button, get all that in place, and then for the leaves, I'm going to take some of this twine, and I'm doing like a crisscross wrap around the stick so that it's twined on there nicely. I'm going to tie a nice tight knot and then tie a bow on top of that. Now I want to make sure the bow doesn't come untied. I'm going to put a tiny bit of hot glue right in the center and then tie my bow so that it glues and holds it in place so it can't come untied. Look at how cute they are. I was so happy with these when I got to this point. Now I decided to give a little dovetail cut to the edge of the leaves. I just thought that was kind of cute. You can do whatever you want for your leaves. And now, because I can't help myself, I'm going to put the tiniest itty bitty button in the center of the bow, and these are ready to now decorate your home with. Aren't they so cute? The Dollar Tree has these round plates at their kitchen section. I picked them up and I was so bummed when I got them home. Something happened where they cracked in transport, but no worries. I can still work with it and have a way to conceal it. I took them outside and spray painted them all orange, and now I'm going to trace them onto 3 different scrapbook papers. I'm cutting inside of that pencil line about a 1/2 inch all the way around the whole border of that pencil line, so that way it's a little bit smaller than the plate and it still has that spray painted orange rim around the plate. I want the circle to lay flat on the flat part of the center of the plate, not coming up the ramped side. Once I had all of my papers cut out, I'm going to add on some hot glue and add in my circles. This part is so easy and it takes no time at all. Now we're going to bring together all the plates. I am adding on some glue, and then the mustard yellow is going to be the center plate. We are making some darling pumpkins that can be hung up on a hook somewhere in your home. I ended up gluing some more glue on the back for some more support. And now I'm just going to use my Craftober to punch 2 holes so I can add some wire, twist it in place, and then thread on a whole bunch of white beads. Once the beads were on to the length that I wanted my wire to be for the handle, I thread into the other hole with the wire, and I'm going to twist that in place. Now I have kids. I don't like people ever getting scratched by things. And I always like to take my wire at the very end of twisting all the way around, and I like to use my needle nose pliers to just really tighten that wire in place so that nobody can get scratched on it. Now for the plates. I'm going to add 3 sticks with big globs of glue because we're going to add on some moss next. And I'm working quickly so that way I can utilize this glue as much as I can. I'm adding on the moss, tapping it into place, and then I'm going to come in with as much greenery as I see fit. You play with this because the options are endless with what you want to put. You can add some flowers, some leaves, some foliage. I did that on the 2 outer pumpkins, and the center pumpkin I'm going to tie this really pretty lace ribbon. Again, I get from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to tie that into place, cut off the tails if they're too long, and then add on a couple more leaves that I had sitting around, all those little bits and bobs that we sometimes hold on to in our craft rooms. These kind of projects are great to use up crafting supplies that you just hold on to on your craft table. Friends, I don't know if you have heard what has been going on, but YouTube is making some big changes in 2026. They are celebrating their 20th anniversary, and they're doing 20 new changes that's allowing AI to be more involved in the algorithm and how videos are recommended. If you have not been getting notifications for my channel, please don't forget to go check out my gallery. There are tons of new videos that have been coming out. I really appreciate it. I love a kitschy wall art piece, especially if you have a gallery wall in your kitchen. I found this scalloped wooden box from the Dollar Tree, and I have one of these apples on hand. I'm going to paint the box black, and once it was painted all around, front, back, sides, I let it dry, and then I took my sanding piece of paper or a sanding block, whichever you have on hand. The Dollar Tree has a great sanding block, but on this day I'm just using a piece of sandpaper. I'm going to rough it up so that we can get that farmhouse look, and it really does help elevate and lift the scallop so you can see it nicely. I'm just going to simply do a quick sand all over it to show that wood coming through, and gives a little bit of a distressed look. And then once it was completely sanded the way I liked, I'm going to take my apple and carefully cut down into the apple so that way I can get a flat surface, because I'm going to glue it into this little box. I remember seeing decor pieces like this back in the 60s and 70s from like home decor magazines, and I think it's so cute. I want to bring it back. I do. I want to bring it back. So I'm going to glue this cute little apple right inside this tray. Wouldn't this be so adorable next to your cabinets or in a little gallery wall artwork that you had going on in your home? Super cute, super simple to make. I hope you give this one a try. For this craft, I'm going to be using this meshed wired basket, this candle stem holder, this foam block, the fabric, and the florals. Everything is from the Dollar Tree except for the fabric. I get that from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to adhere this basket right onto the candle stem holder. I'm using some E6000. I put some on the candle stem holder and then on top of the basket to kind of bind it all together. And then I'm bringing in some hot glue for the long-term, short-term hold while everything dries. I put it off to the side, and now I'm going to work on my florals. I like to always cut them apart because I just feel like when you cut them apart, you can really play with them and make them look like a wild garden, a big bouquet of flowers. It looks more natural to me. I'm just snipping them all apart. Dollar Tree has some fantastic florals. I will say I do not like that they're charging $1.75 for these florals, but they still are one of the better deals out there for florals. I do like to also pick up florals from Hobby Lobby when they have their 40-50% off coupons. Those are my, well, not coupons, they're sales that they have. Those are my favorite deals. I love those. I always pick up florals around that time, but all of these florals are from the Dollar Tree, and they're so beautiful when you bring the creams, these golden yellows with the red tones and that citrusy green. They're so pretty. I poked them all into the foam, and now I'm going to just wrap some fabric up around the foam block, and I just set it right inside so that way I can switch it out with different florals for different seasons. Sometimes even the cutest projects are so simple. I found this darling little wood box in the crafter section at the Dollar Tree, and I am going to take that plus this little stick, some paint, some ribbon, some moss, and we're going to turn it into the cutest little pumpkin box. You can put candies in it, you can use it to hold jewelry, whatever you want. Now I'm going to paint the inside and the outside of the box. Because I didn't have the color that I wanted on hand, I just took the brighter orange that I did have and I mixed it with some brown to get the perfect pumpkin orange. I'm just going to lightly brush this paint on. I don't want to lose that wood texture coming through. I really want that paint to absorb into the wood. so that it has a very earthy look to it. That gives it such a beautiful, cozy fall look to this box. Now I'm just taking some sandpaper once it's completely dry, and I'm bringing back those corners and edges to give it a farmhouse feel. I'm going to hot glue on this twig. I'm adding on even more glue that comes up onto the sides of the stick so that it's really locked into the fiber of that wood. It's going to help hold it on better without having to bring out a drill and some supportive sticks. And while the glue was hot, I am adding on some moss to conceal it because we don't want to see the hot glue. That kind of takes down the quality of the project we're making. And then I'm just going to toss the rest back inside the bag. And this is one of my favorite new techniques I've come up with here in my craft room. I love vintage ribbon when it looks old and wrinkled and well loved. So I am just taking my heat gun and this ribbon I get from the Dollar Tree. I'm kind of chasing it a little bit. It's kind of funny. It's kind of wiggling around. Maybe if I taped it down, it would be a little bit easier to work with. But I'm just gently rubbing my heat gun over, and you can see that it's crinkling up and turning into a beautiful vintage looking ribbon without the cost and price of a vintage ribbon. I am now tying it into a bow. I'm going to snip off the length that I don't want because I don't want it to compete with the box being able to open and close. I'm going to add some glue onto the stick, and then I'm going to just simply attach the bow. This is the cutest, easiest project. It's so relaxing to make it. I hope you give this one a try. We're going to build upon our supplies as we go, but our starting thing we need in hand are a tower of tumbling blocks. These blocks I get from the Dollar Tree, and you get so many to work with in the pack. Now they're supposed to be the Jenga version of the game, but a smaller condensed size, which is so great for DIY crafts. Now I'm taking the first row of 3, zigzagging some glue across it so every block has some glue, and then I'm going to continue the pattern that they have inside the packaging, 3 going one way, 3 going the other way, zigzagging the rows back and forth with the stack of 3 clustered together. I'm going to continue doing this layer by layer, adding in my glue, and the first tower we're making is going to have 10 rows. The second tower we're making is going to have 14 rows. All of this comes from the one pack. Super simple to do this part. And to make sure they're straight, I keep putting it on the side of the table, kind of rolling it around and putting my hands on the sides to straighten it out as much as possible. But it's okay if it's not perfectly straight, because that gives it that darling farmhouse charm to it. Now I'm going to add on quite a bit of red paint. I really want the paint to go between all of the rows of these blocks so you don't see that wood in between and it looks like one unit. You could also paint these green if you have green apples in your home or you prefer green apples. You can do all sorts of things, make them into pumpkins. I love these tumbling blocks. Now I'm taking this large craft stick. I'm going to do a water stain on it, and I just have a jar with water, some brown paint, a little bit of black paint. I mix it all together and it absorbs into these craft sticks beautifully. Once it was dried, I'm going to go ahead and paint on the word apples with a small tip brush. And I always like to just put my paint into the cap of my paint bottle. And I use that instead of getting out a whole nother plate to make another mess. And I'm going to make these 25 cents. I remember when I used to make everything 5 cents and 10 cents. Not anymore. Things are so much more expensive now. So I was like, I'll make these 25 cents. And realistically, it should have been like 50 cents or 75 cents. But anyway, once my paint on that was done, I'm now going to do a little bit of distressing. I'm sanding, and I'm coming in with a black ink pad. that's kind of dried out. I don't want it to be too saturated on this ink pad, and I'm just kind of toughing it up, adding some texture, some depth. This is really going to give it that farmhouse charm to it for the fall season. Now I'm taking some twine, once that was all dry, I'm going to wrap it around 2 or 3 times, and then I'm going to tie it nice and tight. I'm going to take my apple sign, glue that right on, and you don't have to do the apple sign, but I just think it adds so much whimsy to it for the fall season. If the whimsy thing is not your thing, you can leave that part off. I'm using my miter shears to cut this twig down to size, and I'm adding a really nice dollop of glue on the top of these apples because I want to roll the sides of this twig in that glue so it's going up the sides, and it really helps it lock it on a lot better. So I'm rolling it around for both of them, and while the glue is still hot and easy to stick something to, I'm going to add on some moss. I'm going to compress it into the glue without burning my finger, and I add quite a bit, and once it's dry I pull away the extra I don't want. Now I'm adding on a raffia bow right into the center of the tall apple, and I'm going to add some buttons as well because I think this is just so whimsical and charming. I'm going to put that right in the middle of that raffia bow. And then to complete the look of this, I decided I didn't want to do a bow and a button on the smaller apple, but I did want to still put something. So I'm going to add on a leaf, and I also added a leaf to the taller apple too. You'll see it in the finished look, but that's it. So cute, so fun to make. The Dollar Tree has a lot of these gift boxes, and I wanted to turn them into something special that you can use throughout your home for extra storage, and it still looks really pretty for the fall season. So I've got these 2 different sizes. I've got some of these little metal pieces. I'll link all this stuff down below in my description box, and I've got some fabric. To get started with our box, I'm going to put glue all over the top lid, and then I'm going to use my brayer and push that all down into place so it's nice and smooth. And then I'm going to cut a circle around with that extra fabric to get rid of it and glue that edging down. I like to pull the edge down around the lid because it has a nice clean finished look. And then I'm going to come in with a band of fabric, gluing that into place, pulling it nice and tight, and going all the way around the lid. When I get to the end, I'm going to have a nice finished look. I'm just going to fold over this tiny little flap and glue that into place so that it has a completed look for the lid. Now when we do the actual box itself, we have to be careful because these lids are very snug on this container. So what I do is I do the same thing. I start with the bottom, cut a circle, glue down the sides, but when it comes to gluing on that band of fabric going around it, I put the bead of glue going along the bottom, and then I zigzag the middle, but I avoid putting any glue on the top where the rim is because it will cause it where the lid will not want to go back on. Pull it nice and tight, use your brayer or your hand or a popsicle stick, whatever you have on hand. And then you're just going to rub that all into place so it's nice and smooth, and then just keep gluing all the way around until you get to the end. Go ahead, cut off the extra. And you can make it as long as you want to go down into the box. Put your glue on the inside of the box and then pull your fabric down, which is going to have a much smoother top. So when the lid goes on, it doesn't hit any added width in there that the lid's not going to let it slide over. So the fabric on the lid, it'll allow it to slide, but if the glue's in the way, it's going to have a hard time to close it. So you can see here I have a nice tight fit, but it goes on nicely without it having any issues of being able to take it on and off. Now, I went ahead and covered the fabric on the other one just to speed up the interest of time for the video, since I know you're all busy throughout your days. I am now taking the larger one, and I'm going to show you how these little librarian index card labelers, whatever we want to call these things, we'll just call them a label tag. You can tell that they're flat, and I bent it so it would fit the rounded box. Once it was bent in place, I marked my holes, and I'll show you in a second how I make my hole cuts. I marked my holes with a marker, cut them, and now I'm going to be able to create what I'm going to put inside of the metal tag holder. And I'm just using a piece of drop cloth. I've got some stamps here that I'm stamping on some random numbers, nothing in particular, nothing special really. I'm just stamping a whole bunch of numbers, but you can put whatever you want on this. And then once everything was stamped, I cut it down to size by just doing some simple trims, and then I'm going to glue it inside the metal frame versus gluing it on the actual container. It'll allow for things to line up nicely. And like if you were to glue this tag onto the actual box, you might glue it wrong and then the tag goes on wrong and then it's just frustrating. So I like to glue it to the metal label tag. I'm going to glue that down into place, and then I will punch my brads through. So I'm going to show you on this smaller one, once I have those holes marked, I use my X-Acto knife, and I'm just going to do a little crisscross cut into it. This is going to allow your brads to go down in there and lock everything into place nicely. Now here I am adding on the smaller metal tag, and I'm just going to glue that right into place, and then I take my brads and I put them through the holes that I made through the tag metal piece, coming all the way on the other side, and we're going to open up the brad legs, flatten them down nice and flat, and then lock them into place with a little bit of hot glue. Now this is the reason why I didn't finish the inside of the box. If you want to complete the box, I wouldn't do it until you glue down these brads in there, and then you can line the inside of the box however you want, as nicely as you want, because now these brads are locked into place and they're not going to come off. For the top of the smaller one, I decided to add a handle. This is optional. You do whatever you want for your craft projects. That's the whole point of me sharing these. I want you to make them the way you want them to be for your home. But I'm just giving you fun ideas to play with, and I always have the feeling of we could stop there, we could take it a little bit further, which is what I'm doing. I'm adding on a brad, a larger brad, to go through a hole that I created on the top. I added on some E6000 verse, and you saw me dunk it in to the brad fits inside of this little knob. I twisted it all around in there. I got the brad into the lid, and now I'm adding a little bit of hot glue to hold it into place while that E6000 dries, and I'm just going to squish it all into place so you have a nice lid on the top of this. Again, this is optional, but I just wanted to show you, look at how fun to add these little pieces, and it has such a pretty rustic look. Once they are all put back together and they're stacked on top of each other, this is such a cute way to organize things for the fall season. We are going to be using this candy corn piece. I had a video come out just the other day where I made this, and I'm going to link it at the end of this video so you can find it really easy, and down below in the comments. This is the video where I made it. I had an extra one left over, and I never want to waste something that cute, so we're going to turn it into a decor piece with just random scraps of things. So I've got a frame, I've got some fabric, and then I've got this scrap piece of drop cloth, and then some twine. Now I'm going to create a stain. This is how I always create my water stains. A little bit of black paint, more brown paint, mix it together, and I'm going to dunk that candy corn right down in there because I want it to have a rustic, distressed look. Now if the stain is too dark to your liking, it's no big deal. You're just going to add some water, and you're just going to rub that in and use paper towels to pull up that extra color. If it's still a little too dark, then just add a little bit of soapy water, not too much, to get it to the likeness that you are going for. So you can see here I played with it a little bit, and I got that distressing where it looks distressed, but it's not too much, and as it dries, it lightens up more and more. And here's a trick. when I was drying my candy corn with my heat gun. If you want to have a couple little burnt edges, don't start a fire in your craft room. I'm not recommending that, but you can hold it close for a few seconds. Make sure there's no sparks, no embers that are catching onto the fabric, but just warm it up just a little bit and it'll make the edges look a little toasty and a little more distressed. But again, be wise, don't burn your fabric where it causes it to catch on fire. Now for the frame, I just glued the fabric right to the backer of the frame. I popped it back in, and then I'm now going to glue down my dried candy corn piece right onto that frame. This is turning out so cute. Just wait until you see the final project. It's so fun. Now that extra piece of that drop cloth fabric, I'm going to stamp right on it with my letter stamps. I'll link these stamps or something similar to it down below in my description box. I love a text type font. So I'm just stamping that right onto the cloth. I'm using an acrylic block and acrylic stamps so that way I can see through and be able to stamp a couple times to make it as dark as I want. Once I had everything stamped in place, I cut the fabric down to look like a little tag that you would see, like a price tag on something. And I'm going to just smush it all up. Make sure your ink is dry before you do that. And then using the Craftober, because this is what it was actually designed for, is to work with brads and eyelets. I punched a hole from the top part that I normally use to punch through metal and wood. I punched a hole, and then I switched around my eyelet setting on the middle joint. You can see here where the middle joint is. And then I clamped down and smushed my eyelet into place. These eyelets, they are on shoes where your shoelaces go through them, but you can buy them as craft supplies. They have them at tons of craft stores. Now I'm going to just glue that tag down into place, and I have this straight pin that has this darling star on it from back in my scrapbook days. They still sell these. You can get them, I think, at Hobby Lobby. I just put a straight pin through it with a little star in it. I'm going to snip down some twine once I tied a bow, and now I've decided to make it a little bit more rustic because I wanted to go with that look. I'm just adding on some brown paint and some cinnamon to create a little bit of a rusting effect on the frame, and it really does just tie this whole look together. Tap off all the extra cinnamon and it's ready to be displayed in your home. I was online the other day and I saw this really expensive mirror and I thought, oh my word, I could totally make that with this serving tray from the party section at the Dollar Tree and one of these round mirrors. All we have to do to get the look of this high-end mirror that I saw is paint the tray black. I did a couple of coats of it. I would recommend using a chalk paint, or you could also spray paint it if you wanted to. And then once I did a couple of coats of that, I went ahead and let it dry really well. And now we're going to just simply attach this mirror right onto that serving tray. I'm using E6000 and hot glue on it. And then this particular mirror that I saw had a little bit of distressing on it, some rusting to it. I ended up seeing it, by the way, on Antique Farmhouse. It's where I see a lot of my ideas. When I see things really overpriced that stores put out there, you can make it so much more affordable for your home and get a beautiful farmhouse look. I'm just adding on some brown paint and some cinnamon to get a rusted look around the rims, and you go as heavy on this as you want. You cannot do the cinnamon trick at all. It's up to you. But the mirror turns out so beautiful, and it's such a substantial piece to put on your wall that has a beautiful farmhouse look. Now I'm just adding on some twine onto the back so I can hang it up, and I always like to secure it with a little bit of extra fabric to really lock it into place. All right, friends, I found this darling wood sign. It was the $3 plus section. I spray painted orange and I took off the twine on the back. I'm taking a piece of scrapbook paper and I'm going to rip along the sides to create a box that's a rectangle size. And then I'm going to create some pencil lines where I know I want to cut it down because I don't want to cover up all of that plank woodwork there. So I'm just trimming it with my paper trimmer, getting all of those in place, and then I'm going to glue it all down. Now once I had everything glued down, I really wanted to give it a shabby chic look, so I'm going to get out my sanding block and I'm going to really rough up the sides. But first I'm just going to brayer that paper into place, and once it looked good, you can see here with my sandpaper, your sanding block, whatever you want to use, go ahead and rough up the sides to show some of that wood. Now I get these hinges from Amazon. I'll link them down below. I love these hinges for my shabby chic projects. I just think they're so pretty and they have a beautiful vintage look. I'm going to secure them with a little bit of hot glue and then some push pins, and I'm just going to hammer those into place so that they look like grommets. Now I'm going to do another ripped paper, but this one I crinkled up into a square shape, and I'm just going to rough it up a little bit, and now we're going to embellish this thing like crazy because I want to go for a shabby chic vintage fall look for this decor piece. I've got this leaf, this burlap leaf. I ripped off the wire, put some ink on it. I'm adding in some more leaves, and I'm just really just playing with it, adding in texture, adding in fall. I love that about the shabby chic style because you really can just layer and layer and layer, and it looks so beautiful the more you add on. I'm now adding on a white sunflower, and I still wanted to play with it a little bit more. I thought I would pop in a mini pumpkin as well as a pine cone. I'm just adding in the appropriate glue needed without having it be messy, popping them all in place, adding in some of this darling beaded wire, and then I'm going to add on some of these Dollar Tree stickers. Now up at the top, because we're turning this into a pumpkin, I'm taking one of these thicker craft sticks, and I did not want to get out paint this day because it just would have been, more work. Sometimes I just want to get through projects and have fun doing them without bringing out paint. So I'm going to just use my ink to tap along that, and then I took a wipey and I smudged all the ink together and it gave it this really nice stained look to it. So that's a little technique try. If you don't want to get out paint, you can use ink pads as well. I'm going to add on a bow, glue that all in place, and we have a beautiful finished pumpkin to decorate with. The Dollar Tree had this beautiful sign, and I wanted to spruce it up with an easy to do craft project. I found these 2 metal wire baskets. I have 7 of these longer painter sticks, as well as a whole bunch of these thicker craft sticks. I'm going to take those 7 long painter sticks and I'm going to line them all up so that we can turn it into a big board. And then I'm going to take these larger craft sticks and I'm going to cut off the rounded tip at the ends of them, and I'm going to glue them onto the back side of these painter sticks. Once those are glued in place at the top, in the middle, and the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and move on to painting it. And I really like to put a lot of these at the back because it really helps support it. You can add wood glue if you would like as well, but the hot glue dries really quickly. Now I'm going to paint the entire thing black. You can paint it whatever color you want. That's the best part about paint. Customize it to your liking in your home decor. And then I'm going to just do a couple of little holes that I'm going to be drilling so that I can put my baskets on. I'm lifting up my palette that we just made onto some of the little wooden crates the Dollar Tree has, just so I don't go through my table. And then I'm going to use some zip ties. I'm going to come in through the back, loop it around the basket, come back down through the hole, and then I'm going to zip tie them all together. This part's really easy. You might be able to use a Craftober on this, but the only problem is I don't think it's going to reach in far enough, which is why I use my drill. If you have a big bite, which is the longer extended version of a Craftober, you could use that probably. So I'm just going back down in with these zip ties. This project is super quick, super easy, and it has the cutest look when it's done. I'm zipping the back of them, cutting off the extra, and then flipping it back over. I did add a little bit of black paint into the holes once I drilled, just so that I didn't see any of that wood. I wanted it to all be black and neutral. And then up at the top, easy peasy, we're going to add a lot of hot glue, center on our apple picking sign, and it's ready to be used to organize things in your kitchen. This tray was so popular at the Dollar Tree once upon a time, and I'm going to bring it out for today's craft. I am going to paint the whole thing black. I'm giving it 2 coats. I'm using an acrylic paint, but I would definitely recommend using a chalk paint or even a spray paint. My weather was not conducive to work with spray paint on this day. It was too humid. The paint would have taken forever. But I painted mine with a flat acrylic paint, and it actually did really well. I didn't have any problems with it. So you could use acrylic if you want to. Now I'm going to just lightly sand it down on the corners. I wanted all of that detailed work on the tray to come forward to show a little bit of that gold. When I went to scratch that part right there or rough it up, you could see that I had orange that I was sanding from a different project, a little orange pumpkin box. And it ended up coming off on the tray, but it just dusted off. It's no big deal. So I'm just going all around the edges, sanding, roughing it up a little bit, giving it a farmhouse look. And then I'm also going to take a piece of fabric that I cut down to size to fit perfectly on the bottom of the tray. And I'm roughing the sides up so I can fray it just a little bit, so that way it has a really beautiful textured look to it. Very cottage style, very farmhouse cottage. I'm going to glue it down into the tray, and once it's all glued down in, I'm now going to paint a word on it. Now friends, I don't know if you have ever painted words on your craft projects before. It is one of the most relaxing, therapeutic things to do, is to paint words. I love doing it. I get really calm, my breathing slows down, I'll put on a Hallmark fall movie, or I'll put on some relaxing music, some jazz music in my craft room. But before I always get started, I like to sketch out all of my letters to make sure they're spaced nicely, and that will keep me from feeling frustrated if things run out of space. I've had that happen before. It's really important to always sketch out your word, and I always write down the first 2 center letters and work my way out from there on the sides to make sure everything fits. Now I just wanted to do a quick check-in with all of you. How are you all doing? Can you believe that it's even fall? I cannot. I cannot believe that we are officially in fall. This year has flown by. How have you been doing with your family and your home? Have you had any time to craft? Have you had any time for yourself? I know that this year has been a lot of big moments for our family where there was not a lot of time for myself, and I'm trying to find those little moments to breathe and get things done and feel productive, but also still enjoy life. I'm really grateful for crafting because I feel like this is that area where I slow down and make things that are fun. So I hope you're getting to do that in your own home. Let me know down in the comments, how has this year been going for you? Can you believe it's fall? It's pretty crazy that it's already fall. Now what we're going to do, that the letters are all painted on, I'm going to let it completely dry before I move on to the next step. I don't have to do the next step, but I really like a farmhouse cottage look in my home. So I'm going to make sure that it's completely dry, not using a heat gun, because that will cause the plastic on the tray to crack. I don't want that to happen. I just used a fan that I have in my craft room. I'm going to come in with my sanding block. I'm just going to rough up the drop cloth fabric just a little bit, and that's pretty much it, friend. An easy, relaxing project that you have to try. It's a fun one to do. I love these round mirrors that they have at the Dollar Tree in their home section, but I wanted to turn it into something a little bit different. So I took it outside, spray painted it orange, and we're really going to play with this frame. I have this gorgeous calendar that they came out with for 2026. The most beautiful prints are in this. I'm going to rip out the November month, and I'm not going to use all of it. I'm actually going to save part of it for another project on another day. I'm just going to stick it back in the calendar when it's done. But I'm going to create a new backer for the frame. I just traced around the circle, cut it out on a piece of chipboard. And this is the chipboard that's inside the calendar that it comes with. I'm going to put some glue on that. And then I'm going to center on this house with this road. I really wanted to get this part. And you can see that there is still this very much so huge usable piece on the other side. I will use that on another day here on my channel. Don't forget, by the way, to click that subscribe button if you haven't, and click those notification bells, and make sure to check out the gallery over on my channel, because sometimes there's weird things going on with YouTube. Sometimes they don't send out notifications. Once I got everything all locked into the frame, now we're going to play with the frame. I decided to bring on a very dark chocolate brown, and I want the orange to still be popping through. I don't want to cover it up. I want it to look very vintage rusty. And we're going to add on some cinnamon and just keep playing with it until it has a very beautiful antique vintage look. Once all the cinnamon was dried and in place, I'm going to go ahead and add a backer on. I'm taking a piece of fabric, swirled around some glue on the back, and I'm just going to push that right down on there. And I'm going to trim right around the rim of that frame. Now at this point we want to be able to hang it up, so I'm going to add on this sweet little ribbon on the back so I can hang that up in my house. And then up at the top, friends, I forgot to show this part, but I took my sanding block and I started to peel back some of the cinnamon, some of that chocolate brown paint to reveal the orange. When I lay it flat, you'll see it. But at this point, I'm adding on a stick at the top and some boxwood. It was kind of tricky trying to hold everything because the frame kept wanting to roll off the table. So I'm having to hold it all in place. I add a pine cone, some moss. I'm just adding on things that feel very organic looking. And that's it. I think it turned out so pretty. What do you all think? I was ready to create a new wreath for my front door, and so I pulled a whole bunch of random florals that I've picked up at the Dollar Tree. These apples, I buy them in a kit from Amazon. It's the best price for faux apples. I will make sure to link that in the comments and in the description box. I'm going to be using a Dollar Tree wreath form that is a 20-inch wide, this darling apple sign, some of these ribbons from the Dollar Tree, and then some of this ticking stripe fabric I get from Hobby Lobby, as well as 2 zip ties and some craft sticks and a whole lot of hot glue. All right, to get our project started, we're going to punch some holes into the apples so that way we can mount the apples onto this craft stick. This is really going to help it stabilize in the wreath. The apples are very slick and they will just come off with hot glue over time. I like to start my wreath forms by taking some of this burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I always twist around that first area, glue it into place, and then use my little clamp to hold it there while it's drying so I don't burn my fingers. And then I'm going to just simply coil this burlap ribbon all the way around the wreath. And when I get to the end, I'm going to basically twist it off, add some glue, and then clamp it back down again so I can cut it. That way I don't burn my fingers because the glue will seep through the burlap ribbon since there are very small holes within the ribbon. Now we're going to do just one more prep thing. I'm going to be taking some of this ticking stripe fabric. This is optional, but I really love having a very full wreath whenever I make them. I think when a wreath looks kind of skimpy, that's when you know it's kind of a lower quality wreath, and I really like to beef mine up quite a bit. So I'm taking some of these fabrics. They are about 7 inches by 1.5 inches wide and long. I'm going to put those off to the side. And now we're going to add on our apple farm fresh sign. I am using my Crocodile just to punch an extra hole so that way I can zip tie it to the sign and then I don't have a whole bunch of glue all over this. It just keeps it nice and clean and tidy. Now for those fabric strips. I am going to just simply do a single tie knot right onto it, and I'm going to bring in all of my greenery around it. This really does thicken up the wreath, and it has such a pretty look with that ticking stripe in there. You'll see at the end how cute it looks all together. Now I'm coming in with some colorful fall leaves. I'm bringing in this beautiful cranberry, almost a burgundy red leaf, as well as an orange leaf. And you can use whatever colors you want, but I really wanted this wreath to be so warm and remind me of the fall season. I love the bright colors that fall brings. We live in the state of Missouri, and here we have all of that beautiful foliage come through. I love when the colors are so bright when I drive down the street. Oh, it makes me so happy, or I go for my walks in the morning. Now I'm coming in with some very whimsical wispy flowers, some more leaves. I'm really just packing this thing in with all sorts of different foliage and these white large sunflowers. I think the sunflowers definitely are a statement piece, and they match the sign. Now for the apples, you can see that the hot glue is dried. That stick is really going to allow it to stay down in there and hold nicely into the wreath so it doesn't just pop off. The slick surface with hot glue just is not going to work together, so it's best to punch a hole and use a craft stick. And then you're just going to sneak that down in there, and these are on there very snugly, and it's not going to have any issues with coming off. Now I'm going to add in just a few more things, looking for any bald areas where I might see some of that burlap ribbon. I don't want to see that ribbon. I want to make sure I'm just adding in. And doesn't that ticking stripe fabric look so cute in there? I just think it looks so perfect for fall. And any more little areas, I'm bringing in some of these tiny florals from the Dollar Tree. Again, all of these florals are from the Dollar Tree. The only thing not from the Dollar Tree is that fabric and the apples, but everything else is Dollar Tree. So just keep filling it in until you get it to a point that it just looks so lush and beautiful. And this is such a relaxing project. I'm basically doing this while I have some music on in my craft room. I actually was listening to Harry Connick Jr. He's one of my favorite jazz singers. I had that playing while I was crafting this wreath, and I felt so relaxed, and I had a candle burning in my room. It was actually an apple and fir candle, which I love. Now I zip tied on my red gingham ribbon, and then I'm going to come on top of that with some hot glue and a brown burlap ribbon. And to finish off the look of that ribbon, I'm going to add in one more sunflower right into the center, and then bring in some more greenery tucked in another little green leaf down underneath that sunflower. This is really going to be such a substantial wreath on your front door. I hope you give this one a try. It is so cozy for the fall season, and I love the apple theme. That wraps up today's video. Thank you all so much for being here. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you're new. If you are returning, thank you for being my friend. It always means so much every time you leave a comment, click that thumbs up, and just in general, come and hang out with me. Thank you for doing that, because it just makes the world more fun when we get to have something in common like crafting. Now I'm going to recommend this video right here. If you missed it, it was from the other day. Don't forget to go and check that one out, because it's a fun one too. And until the next episode, bye friends.